A municipal bond's official statement contains a few key sections for investors. The description of the bonds section typically describes the key terms of the bonds, including interest rates, if the interest rate is variable, how the rate is determined, expected payment dates for interest and principal, and terms and conditions applicable for any redemption provisions. Redemption provisions, also sometimes called call provisions, will typically describe whether the issuer may repay investors before the bond's maturity date, and if so, on what terms. This information is key to understanding the potential total returns on your investment. Returns may be different than expected if the issuer exercises its right to call the bond prior to maturity. Redemption provisions will also be taken into account in the price you will be paid if you sell your bond before it matures. The section titled Security for the Bonds explains how the bonds will be repaid, as well as the sources and funds pledged by the issuer to repay investors. General obligation typically refers to a bond issued by a state or local government that is payable from general funds of the issuer. However, the precise source and priority of payment for general obligation bonds may vary considerably from issuer to issuer and is dependent on applicable state or local law. Revenue bond is the term used generally to describe a bond that is payable from a specific source of revenue, and to which the full faith and credit of an issuer with taxing power is not pledged. Revenue bonds are payable from identified sources of revenue and may be derived from operation of the financed project, grants, excise, or other specified non-ad valorem taxes. The nature of these pledges may differ widely based on the type of issuer and type of revenue stream. This section may also include other provisions about the issuer's commitment to repay investors and manage its debt, such as agreements to raise revenues if necessary to repay investors, as well as terms for incurring additional debt. Other covenants may include an agreement to maintain rates and charges, or debt service coverage ratios. Debt service coverage ratios describe the cash available to make the required payments to bond investors. To get a more complete picture of all the funds that may be used to repay investors, look for a section called Credit Enhancement to determine whether a third party has agreed to make payments to bond investors under certain circumstances. Another important section in the official statement describes the issuer's agreement to provide certain continuing disclosures about its financial position or events that can have an impact on the bonds. The continuing disclosure section will also indicate the issuer's track record of providing these disclosures as promised for previous bond issues, which you may wish to take into consideration in evaluating the likelihood that the issuer will provide this information for this issuance. Finally, make sure to review the appendices to the official statement for supporting documents such as audited financial statements and reports. For example, a feasibility study or engineer's report is often provided for bonds to be backed by project revenue. Watch the MSRB's video on finding an official statement to learn how to access official statements.